Welcome everybody to today's session, Tips and Tricks, Improve Compliance and Mitigate Risk. My name is Connie Hoen, and with me today are two experts to help talk through the tips and tricks. Gary?
Yeah, hi. It's my pleasure to be here speaking with you today. I tend to be a little inherently shy unless I'm asked to speak about a topic that I'm familiar with as well as passionate about, and I hope that rings through in my dialogue. As mentioned, my name is Gary Deinken, and I'm the IT Director of Business Process Management at the National Automobile Dealers Association, or simply the acronym NADA. NADA was founded in 1917 to be the voice of the dealer in Washington, D.C. We are a member association representing over 16,000 new car and truck franchise dealers. Ironically, this Saturday, March 23rd, is my 20-year anniversary at NADA.
Yay!
When I first started at NADA, I was a little shocked to see a number of paper-based accounting processes. So to me, these were really easy initiatives and wins to automate these processes. In 2007, we started to tackle our expense reporting process, and in 2008, we implemented a scaled-down version of Concur known as Expense Expert as co-licensed through ADP. In 2012, Concur switched to a direct licensing model, and we implemented the professional version of Expense, adding travel and corporate credit card feeds. We have subsequently added the Expense It feature and promote use of the mobile application. Today, I would say we are at a stage of re-engagement with the application. We had become administratively stagnant, I guess, to the testament of Concur being a stable and user-friendly system. However, we are not taking advantage of all the baseline functionality available to us. So our goal this year is to conduct a thorough review of our configuration, reassure compliance to company policy, improve data integrations and report distribution, and enhance the user experience.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, definitely great. And Miranda?
Thank you so much, Connie. My name is Miranda Rasmussen, and as a Senior Client Success Manager, I am one of your main Concur points of contact. Client Success Managers bring technical advice, best practices, networking opportunities, and more to the partnership. I'm lucky enough to have interviewed Gary at a previous event in San Francisco last year, and Connie is known as the Queen of Compliance. So I'm just lucky to be a part of this party.
Queen of Compliance, that is an amazing fun title. I have to change my business cards.
Yes, please.
Yes, I am Connie Hoen. I am the Director of the Global Audit Services, and I am super excited to be here with you two to be able to talk through some tips and tricks. I go to sleep thinking about compliance, and I wake up thinking about compliance. So it's just who I am. So I'm excited to share some of that with everybody. All right?
So we're going to bring some big holistic compliance trends into sharper focus by talking about how Concur can help you to increase productivity by leveraging AI and machine learning, how you can stay compliant while supporting both in-office and remote work environments, and how to do it while keeping your carbon footprint in check.
So quotes. Quotes are, I use quotes all the time, and I didn't realize it until it was called out at some point. And this quote to me is perfect. If you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. And that is so true. And I do have to thank the former U.S. Deputy Attorney General Paul Nutley to be able to use this quote, and I do quite often reference this quote. So it's great. Gary, how about you? Have you any feedback on here?
I've uncovered a lot of scenarios. I think this one scenario that I think of occurred not long after we initially implemented the Expense Expert version of Concur, so we were new to an automated system. I'd also just assumed managerial oversight of the expense reporting process, so I was involved in audit reviews, and to this day, we still audit 100% of expense reports internally. This employee had submitted an expense report to purchase airfare for a business trip using their supervisor's credit card. That's okay, corporate credit card, but then also purchased personal airfare for their spouse and child for that same trip. When I discovered that, I immediately called them to my office. Their explanation was that they were allowed to do this in prior years and that they would pay and reimburse us for the personal airfare after the trip was completed. They're basically fronting the airfare. So I reviewed that with our CFO, and we made the decision that that employee would need to reimburse us immediately. They, of course, were not happy about that, but I stated that this clearly went against our corporate expense policy and that there was a new sheriff in town. And ironically and funny, my mom actually gave me a sheriff's hat for Christmas that year. I guess really what I learned early on for compliance is that your expense policy and compliance is only as strong as your enforcement of it. And sometimes it's a good idea to get some fresh eyes on the process.
I completely agree. And Gary, you know what? You are our sheriff also, so here's your badge.
I wear it with honor. Thank you very much.
And typically in these sessions, I stick very granular with our amazing tips and tricks document and stay very micro-focused. But this year with Connie and Gary, we're able to bring these tips and tricks to life. And so we want to take a step back and look at the bigger trends that we're hearing about in 2024 and help you provide just ways that Concur can help you prepare for the future. So definitely, as Gary was talking about, re-engagement and staying close to your client success team. So, making sure that you are talking with the trends that you want to adopt and incorporate them into your platform. The CSMs, we, they, us, we're instrumental in closing these loops. So being able to bring Connie's team in and look at how things are configured, maybe look at some new audit rules. It's definitely something that we can orchestrate. But when we're talking about culture, compliance, what's right by whom, there's a lot of angles to consider. What's the buy-in? And if the organization is caring more about employee experience than compliance, it's hard to determine where the focal point of the organization is.
So again, to tell a recent example that I had with a client, they had their employees and they were pushing back because it was too restrictive. They were used to very similar, not having that sheriff in town, but the rules and policy exceptions, there were just too many of them coming back. And that employee group did push back enough that leadership got involved and said, guys, we have to have some more control around this, because if we don't have the control that everybody follows, it's like not having any control at all. So again, it was definitely a great dialogue back and forth. It was a give and take as well. They were able to identify, some of the things maybe weren't as important and other areas that were. So it was a great process to be able to maybe modify their audit policy. Gary, how about you? Are you guys having any feedback on that?
No, I completely agree with you. I think if you ask me, I would say both compliance and user experience are equally important. The accountant in me understands the compliance, while the traveler in me understands the user experience. I think communication is key, so once the policy has been enacted, and we actually review and update our T&E policy annually, employees understand and know what can be approved. It plays into managing budgets, which tend to be tightening a little bit. But that's where the user experience also comes into play, congruent to the policy compliance. And as a systems administrator, I have to make compliance, both compliance and user experience, work. I also like to speak about productivity. I don't want my salespeople tied down with overly burdensome administrative applications. I want them focusing on sales. I want them interacting with our clients. Additionally, I need to put the expense data into the hands of VPs and decision makers so they can manage their budget and have a view of their overall spend. That's why a couple of years ago, we implemented the Expense It application to improve the user experience, which has been a huge benefit to our frequent submitters. Additionally, this year, one of our data initiatives is to develop dashboards that can be pushed out and viewed by those decision makers. It plays into maximizing our utilization of existing configuration and administrative features, as well as looking forward to other apps and partner applications to build out a Concur ecosystem of integrated products and solutions.
Nice, I completely agree. And as you were talking, you said the compliance team got involved. With AI and ML technology, the compliance officers must stay informed. I totally agree, and adapt to these evolving trends. So by doing so, they can not only ensure that their organizations remain compliant, but also leverage these trends as opportunities for growth. The AI/ML, they're being used for compliance, specifically in our areas with our Verify service. So again, the expense report is submitted, the AI/ML technology runs through the process with the compliance checks that organization defined, and then versus the accounting team or the internal audit team having to look at everything. They're looking at only the items that AIML technology called out. I'm going to pick on alcohol. So here again, if the expense report comes through and there's a line item for meals and there's alcohol listed on it, that will be sent over to the internal audit team. Again, being able to deal with that. So they only have to look at the things they have to look at, not look at everything else. That's good. Very similar to our intelligent audit service. That's following the same process. The reports are submitted. We go through that AIML technology process. Anything identified with that alcohol, it goes to our Concur auditors. We will work directly with the employees that were submitting the expense so they understand what went wrong, what they have to do, then get it resubmitted, and now it will go through without any delays. Again, the technology is great for that process. Consider this. If we're now all going back to the office, some people may still remain remote. How does our policy change as a result of that? So I'm working with organizations to help them bridge through that process to understand, for those that are staying remote, for those that are coming into the office, do they have a different policy need? Gary, what are you guys currently doing?
Yeah, so since 2021, we actually have had a return to office policy where our admin staff are in the office Monday through Thursday, and then they have the option to work remote from Friday. So we have a 4-day on-site and 1-day remote, unless you have pre-approved telecommuting capabilities.
Perfect.
Well, and I remember when I started at Concur 5 years ago, we were relocating from Minnesota to Washington, new job, new house. Really excited to have this 3-2 work week. It was very fun. So Wednesday afternoons, this is new, Washington has this early release Wednesday. So it was my first day working from home, and all of a sudden the kids are coming in the door at 1 o'clock, and I was very happy to be on a remote day.
Right, exactly.
And so whether I was working this 3-2 schedule in Bellevue or now being a fully remote employee, either way, a consistent task was my cell phone reimbursement. And so for us, it's a super easy process, right? I get my Verizon bill, I upload it in Concur, I change the dates, easy peasy, right? Gary, how are you guys handling cell phone reimbursement?
Yeah, so for about a year ago, we actually changed, and our cell phone reimbursement is handled through our payroll processing. So management decides which staff members are eligible and have a bona fide business use to have a cell phone reimbursement, and we include that in their paycheck. That's included monthly as a non-taxable reimbursement. I guess this also reduces the number of expense reports submitted against our tier level, and honestly, it's one less expense type that we have to audit for compliance.
Nice. Nice.
And so the return to the office has a big ripple effect on both collaboration and sustainability. I have proven that remote work is productive work, but I miss my work friends. This is when, I miss being able to collaborate. I miss being able to go in the office. And so, I think that it's going to be top of mind for a lot of organizations. And what does sustainability and team building look like under that microscope? How do we continue to collaborate and get clever? And then again, looking at something that you were talking about, Gary, with event spend. Can you walk us through how you wanted to see the board of directors travel spend in Concur?
Yes, certainly. We actually handle our meeting event planning through another application. And then we have our board members submit an expense report for reimbursement using an Excel template. Yeah, I know, still using Excel. These are then reviewed and paid through our AP process. There is a little additional wrinkle because of that for reportable income. So if there is an expense not substantiated with a corresponding receipt, that has to be treated as reportable income. So we are actually looking at Group Eyes as an integrated application within the Concur ecosystem, and then manage board of director member reimbursements through Concur expense. Again, leveraging those additional Concur solutions.
Nice.
And I love that you're leveraging App Center partnerships, Gary. Thrust Carbon is another great example of being able to find a partner that aligns with your sustainability goals. They can provide granular details about historical travel emissions, which is super cool. And so, okay, this is hard for me to say. We've done this before, but global regulatory harmonization.
Nice.
Beautiful phrase. Let's think of this as an example. Say you're an expanding organization and you've just acquired a new entity. Congratulations, woo! What do we do first?
Right.
We standardize. We set some clear guidelines on what's expected now that the new sheriff is in town.
You know, and again, I totally agree. Standardization is the key here. I'm working with organizations that are doing that activity all the time, or they just may have added, not necessarily a acquisition, but they just may have opened up a different location. And so my recommendation is to have a global audit rule across the board. Let everybody know what is expected of them. And then if you have a uniqueness in one location, Germany, for example, let those employees submit those transactions. But for everybody to follow the same plan is what I'm really seeing organizations following, keeping it simple.
I like that.
Yep.
I like that a lot.
So Gary, what are your thoughts on standardization as it relates to policy and employee experience?
Great. Yeah, we actually utilize various audit rules to control transactional posting. However, our focus for us this year is to build out validation tables. As I resume responsibility of our system administration, I had a discussion with an analyst in our accounting department who mentioned the number of transactional kickouts that we experience while importing the ledger file into our ERP after processing expense reports. And I had no idea this was an issue. Building those validation tables will reduce the number of those kickout transactions and improve the data integration between Concur and our ERP. I guess tangentially, it will reduce risk as employees will not be able to charge against an expense type that doesn't exist and map to their cost center and their budget. This may have some user experience impact, but we will communicate out to all staff so they understand the impact on their use of the application.
Nice, nice. Yeah, the do more with less is almost as common as hello. It's very common. So again, as I'm looking at maximizing organizations' platforms. We've already kind of talked through that with outcomes to audit solutions. We've talked about what's built into your Concur, work with your CSM, being able to understand if I'm making an audit rule and does it impact an audit rule that I created 10 years ago.
It's huge right now.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right? Also, the reports. These are my favorite top 10 reports. I work with a lot of data, and my favorite is highlighted here. It is the reports deleted after the audit. So again, this is for those organizations that have auditing with SAP Concur. And it says the report came in, went through the technology, the audit process was completed, regardless if we pass it or if we fail it, back to the employee with exceptions, the employee, or I should say that report is deleted after that fact. So from the compliance part of me says, what did we find, and send back to them that they're like, I got to get rid of this. They found it. But then on the other hand, we also understand it's a learning opportunity. The employee may have said, oh, I got something back. I'm going to delete it and start over. So that's just an opportunity for us to go back and train the employee as to, nope, you don't need to delete it. You can just fix whatever was wrong and then resubmit it. So Gary, are any of these reports things that you are interested in?
Oh, absolutely. I will say this is a classic Connie slide. I saw this one last October, I think, in San Francisco.
Yep.
So I went back, and the 3 reports that I started to look at and focus on are the approved receipts not receipts not received or reviewed. That tells me an approver is just clicking, not really looking and reviewing the backup. The workflow cycle by approver, and also the top 10 longest to approve.
Yep, great.
And these are all reports that your client success manager can help you track down or, activate if necessary.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
Gary, anything else, maybe re-engagement goals for 2024 that you want to shed some light on?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. As mentioned, our focus this year is to administratively re-engage with the Concur application by contracting to have a premium assistant. from the creation of validation tables, generation and disbursement of new analytical reports, and a complete and thorough review of our configuration. If I could share just one more suggestion to all of you, stay engaged and stay involved. I had a wonderful client success manager last year who pushed me to think, but also was a collaborator and got me involved with other events. I happened to be in Minneapolis on a day Concur was conducting a client roundtable discussion at their suburban office location. It was there, while chatting with other clients, I even heard the term validation tables for the first time. So organizationally, I think Concur provides a superb client support infrastructure, and you can learn a lot interacting with your CSM. But I would also add that as a user community, we can support each other and learn a lot from each other. Having a strong user community and a strong unified voice can only improve the Concur platform, and we can help drive future enhancement and improvements. Stay engaged.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
everybody.